flames of a broken and dispirited nation, rebuilding the country from the ashes of the Versailles Treaty into a fascist juggernaut that seemed unstoppable.
With a huge historical event like World War II, it's not a surprise that some video games would be based off it. Well, now this seems pretty normal in the year 2019. 20 years ago, no one had really perfected it to start some sort of craze in the gaming industry. Released in 1999 for the Sony PlayStation, developed by DreamWorks Interactive and published by Electronic Arts, Medal of Honor was to many the start of the World War II first-person shooter craze that would become a normalcy in the future generations of gaming.
And finally, Fortress Europe itself. You, soldier, are a part of this great crusade. Are you ready to rise above and beyond the call of duty?
Good morning, Lieutenant. I'm Colonel Hargrove from the Office of Strategic Services. I'll get right to the point.
While not being a historically accurate story, it is historically authentic. You play as a fictional United States of America pilot, Lieutenant Jimmy Patterson, who is recruited by the Office of Strategic Services after them hearing of your heroic deed after crashing into enemy territory. After being recruited, you are immediately sent to France to start your series of missions to save Europe and win the war for the Allies.
Like you, Lieutenant Patterson. What you did last Monday got our attention. I know you consider yourself just another anonymous pilot in the Transport Corps, but taking out a half a dozen of the Wehrmacht and then sneaking back into friendly territory is quite an impressive feat of soldiering by anyone's measure.
Being the World War II history video game memer that I am, it is nice to see a game that really proves that this kind of genre will work on consoles. While some may say GoldenEye 007 on the Nintendo 64 was the start of it into the mainstream consoles, let's be honest, the controls were dog shit because they didn't have two analog thumbsticks. And while we're on the topic of controls, for this game, thank God thumbsticks are supported, because using the D-pad for a 3D game sounds like a living hell that I would not want to play. While this game did come out in 1999, it still looks fairly decent even today if you don't really care for graphics that much. The textures are almost completely different from every level, so you won't have to worry of looking at the same thing over and over. The models of the weapons are decent enough to where you can tell what weapon you or the enemy is holding. While the graphics may look standard for the PlayStation, where this game really shines is in its sound department.
Are you new here, sir? Your papers are in order. American fire!
For starters, the music is composed by Michael Giacchino, hopefully I'm saying that right, who has done the music for movies Up and more recently The Incredibles 2. But his claim to fame really started after composing music for the Medal of Honor franchise. The music from start to finish really makes you feel like a hero going through a struggle. You know, how a video game is supposed to make you feel. Add the stellar soundtrack to the ambience and German soldier voices, and you've got yourself a game that is a literal masterpiece. Just listen to this clip at the start of one of the levels. It's something else. While music can be an integral part of this game, what it comes down to is the gameplay in the long run. The game basically has you soldiering around occupied France, then mainland Germany as the war goes on, disrupting the German lines in any way, shape, or form. The way you proceed the game is mainly linear. The game might give you multiple objectives that can be done in any order, but the ways that the levels are laid out, you will more than likely complete the objectives as they are listed. Not that this is a bad thing, but it is something to take note of. The weapons at your disposal aren't anything different from your standard World War II FPS games. Your SMG is either a German MP40 or American Thompson submachine gun, and you have the usual M1 Garand at your disposal for 80% of the game. For the missions that you have to go undercover, you will usually have a silenced M1911 pistol to take out enemies without garnering any attention. Halfway through the game, you as well as the enemy can use a bazooka. While I didn't use it that much, the later levels almost have every other enemy equipped with a bazooka, and with every AI comes pinpoint accuracy. The AI in this game does some surprising things I don't see games AI do today. For instance, the enemy can throw back grenades. They have a tendency to do this a lot, so much so that I stopped using grenades altogether. The AI can also crawl into vents like the player does. While this may be a little addition, I think it is the little things that this game has makes it great. While I do think this game is definitely worth a playthrough, the game does not come without its problems. The biggest problem I had with the game is its auto-aiming and hitboxes of not only enemies but the world itself. A lot of times I was firing the M1 Garand rifle and it wasn't really hitting where I wanted it to. While the game has a manual aiming option, who the fuck is gonna do that when there's 3 Germans around you who are all equipped with bazookas and aiming at you ready to blast your ass like a V2 rocket? While the game was released in 1999, it definitely holds up 20 years later. This game started a craze of first-person shooter games to be set in World War II in the 6th and 7th generations of gaming. A big franchise like Call of Duty definitely owes some respect to this game for setting the stage for its own success. While the game may be somewhat forgotten, its gameplay roots can still be seen in modern first-person shooters. If you have never played Medal of Honor, I highly recommend you do. The game had me grit from start to finish, or if you haven't played it in a while, you may be surprised with what it has to offer to returning players. While the story may not be something to behold, the great American pastime of shooting Nazis, the savior of will influence first-person shooters for years to come.